So we are back, and today we are doing the 717 rebuild video. Everything that you saw at the beginning of this video that has been powder coated, not painted. So we bead blast everything like normal. After it comes back from bead blast, we clean up all the gasket surfaces, tape them up with argon tape, send them out to powder coat. They get powder coated, then we come back, untape them, lay everything out, make sure we have everything. And then the most important thing is that we chase all of our threads. So you cannot forget that step, especially if you're sandblasting. You got to go in here with the thread chase, with your M8, M16, or M16, Jesus, M6s. All of your threads need to be chased out, because the last thing you want is to put your head on and for there to be some type of debris in this cylinder threads, and then you can't get your hardware all the way down, and you got to take it out and thread it on everything else. So save yourself the trouble, thread it, clean up all your gasket surfaces before you even move any closer to assembling your engine. All right, so we got all of our hardware wire wheeled. That's also important. Make sure that you're wire wheeling all of your hardware. All your threads are nice and clean. We have our brand new crankshaft here. This is a WSM crank that Andrew from AP Customs, which again, this donor engine's from him, just so we can help you guys out. He makes sure everything's straight on the WSM. Comes with the gasket kit from Andrew, and then he also does all of our bore work for every single engine that comes out of this garage. So here's our WSM Platinum pistons. Everything brand new on this thing, and should be great for the HX Sport Spec build that we are going to do on the channel come wintertime.
People want to know, do we still have the cooler, the Unabomber cooler?
The cooler's gone.
Oh, yeah. How are we going to ship this back?
I got rid of the cooler. It'll have to be, well, no, we're going to use this in the HX. It doesn't have to go back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, originally it was going to go back to Andrew, but then Andrew has recently told me that, you know, just purchase it off of me and you can use it for your HX. So
where's the HX?
Right there in the corner.
Oh, there it is.
With all the crap on it.
Yeah.
The seat cover that's on it, and it has to get blown apart for paint and everything else.
It's like when you buy a treadmill and you use it for a hanger.
There you go. Yeah, it's like a bench.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Those are nice.
Okay. Yeah. All right, back to the regular program.
All right, so I will move around all this stuff now and get us all set up so we can start installing the bottom end.
Oh, let's get to it.
Oh yeah. Alright, we'll have links in the description below for you guys, but this we get off of SeaDooSource.com. They have all your torque specs and your sequences. So like they'll have a sequence of how to tighten the lower end together so that everything's correct and squished down completely. So we'll link it for here, but we'll also put all of the torque specs as we're putting it together on the engine. We'll have them in the video, kind of like in letters on the bottom of the screen of what the torque specs are. The first step, if you blew it apart as much as we did, is you're going to have to put this bearing back in for the rotary valve shaft. So in through the front, slide it all the way to the back, which is going to stop where it sits in. Push it in as flat as possible with your hand. And then I have this bearing install tool. So I match it up with my bearing size. That drops in, sits on my bearing. And then I'm going to use a socket, which fits perfectly around that tool, with a rubber mallet hammer, and I'm going to gently tap it in. Okay, again, we do this for you guys because we know you're in the garage. Realistically, we should go in the corner of the shop and use the press tool, but I know a lot of you guys don't have a press tool, so we're installing it that way. As long as you have a nice bearing install tool or a socket that fits on the outside diameter of that bearing, you cannot damage it. Make sure that the ball bearings are facing into the engine, and this is how the bearing is looking for you. The bearing without, right, so there's your ball bearings. They need to face inside. Make sure you install it the right way. Okay, so now we have that installed. We're going to do the same thing and install our RV shaft. In our video for just assembly, if you saw, this engine had a catastrophic failure and stopped abruptly. So we did send this to the machine shop to measure runout and everything, and it was perfect, so we're going to reuse it. But definitely, if you have any question about the trueness of your RV shaft, get it checked, order a new one from WSM. So we'll install that now, and then we'll show you how to put the C-clip in. Alright, so now that our RV shaft is installed, I like to make sure that the seal's seated with a proper size socket. So my socket fits the outside of that. Now remember, this is a rubber seal with a metal retainer on it, so you can bend it and script the seal. You're just going to very lightly tap around until you feel that it's seated. Okay, so now I know for sure it's seated, because if you look down in here, which is very hard to get on camera, so I'm sure you won't be able to see it, but you can see the groove for your C-clip So now that that's all flush and you can see the groove, the full groove, not just some of it, then you know it's seated all the way. So make sure you can spin it, make sure your bearing's still smooth, make sure everything's still good to go there, and then we'll find the C-clip and we'll put that in. So here's our C-clip. A couple different ways you can do this. You can set the bottom on, right? And then you can take your ring and push it on both sides. That's the way that I like to do it, just so that I can make sure everything's done. However, you can also use needle nose, pinch it together, it drops in, or they actually make a special tool for that C-clip, which we broke a couple months ago, and I still have yet to order one, even though I mentioned it in the disassemble video that it was broken, I needed one. But
it's okay.
Is what it is. We all drop balls. I drop them the most, but my balls haven't dropped yet, so there is what it is. All right, so now that so now that this is complete, we can start assembling our bottom end, which is, we're going to put our crankshaft and everything in now. So we'll get that all set up and show you what to do for that. Okay, so as mentioned before, make sure that your gasket surface or sealant surface, whatever you want to call it, is perfect. Now we're going to prep this surface for the other mating half. I don't like to do it with the crankshaft in because it's a mess. So we're using 518, which we're actually using Permatex because I was using 518 and I think I no longer like 518 by Loctite, so I'm using Permatex. We're gonna do a nice thin layer of the 518 Permatex, whatever. And then we'll spread it all out with our fingers. Right? You don't need to do this thick. These are machined surfaces. The tolerances are already set. Here's some tape left over from powder coat. Watch that. The machined surfaces have very close, I mean, they should have a zero tolerance, well, close to a zero tolerance. But you should not be using silicone on this. I see a lot of people, and in our comments I've seen it too, like, oh, you should just use silicone. That's not what the manual calls for. It was put together originally with 518 from Loctite, and this is the equivalent to 518. So it needs to go back together with 518 and not a silicone sealant. If you want to use silicone sealant, go ahead, but it's the wrong way to do it. So we're going to 518 the surface, like I said. Now that we have all that in, we're going to spread it out with our fingers. Nice even layer. We're going to do both halves. Okay. This is also a much easier cleanup than silicone. Silicone is terrible to clean up. Especially it gets all over your case and you can't wipe it, because if you have a painted case or whatever, then using acetone or something to get off the silicone is going to eat the paint, and it's just a mess. So just do yourself a favor, get 518. It's 13 bucks. Okay, so we're going to smear this all out nice and perfect like this. If you miss some, put a little dab on your finger, smear it out. Okay, and then a big thing that I do on all of them is I get these chamfers. You don't need to cake these chamfers. They just need to have a little bit of sealant in them. So smear it, do whatever you gotta do to make it nice and even. Just a little bit of it so that your seals don't have a chance of spinning, because if they start spinning, then they will create a leak, which will transfer oil into your cylinders, and you'll be doing the bottom end again. So a little bit inside the chamfers, spread it all out. You shouldn't have so much in here to where when you drop the crank in, it just like oozes out of the sides. That's not what, we're not trying to seal it. We're just trying to get the actual seal to stay in place. Okay, so now that that's all in, we need to put this cage in. This cage goes on the bottom end. This is the bottom. And then we're gonna drop the crank in. So what I do for the crank is I spin all of my bearing pins up, right? I clock them all up. Then you need to look where your front is. Here's your front, okay? So this is mag side, PTO side, mag side, PTO side. So you're gonna pick up your crank, lightly set it into place, applying no pressure at this time because you're gonna have to start moving this thing around. All right, so right off the bat, you can see that this is not set in. That's perfectly fine because we need to put our seals in first. So you're gonna take your seal, you're gonna real lightly take your finger, smear some 518 around it. At the same time, you're gonna take some grease. This is jet pump grease from like a 4-stroke, right? You're gonna go around the snouts. This way on your first crank, your seal is not dry. You're gonna push that in and against the bearing, right? There's a chamfer there, so it needs to be in there. You're gonna take your front, you're gonna do the same thing. I already got some grease in here on it. Push our front in so that those, we're not messing with those later. Okay, now you're going to look at your bottom of your case, which we have prepped with 518, the same exact way that we just showed you. And you're going to look for your bearing reliefs. Okay, so your bearing reliefs are on the opposite side of your rotary gear surface, or your rotary surface. So you're going to teeter the crank, pick it up, put the retainer in where it needs to be, and you're going to face all of your pins away from you because you have your rotary surface facing you at this point, right? Rotate as many of them as you can until you have to pick up the other side. Before you set the side down, push your seal in, make sure your seal and your crank is where it needs to be. You're going to lift this side up, rotate your bearings, push this seal in, make sure that's where it needs to be, and then you're going to take your retainer that goes on the end, and you're going to drop it into place, which is a little tough at this point right now, but not bad. Okay, so now everything is set bearing wise for our dowel pins. Our seals are in, they have grease around them for first start, they have 518 around them to ensure that they are properly seated. Your front's in. You can now take your other case half that you have prepped with 518, lift up one of your, okay, you're gonna set this where it needs to be, right? Make sure it rotates smooth before you go to flip it over to bolt it together, and it does. So now that we are at this stage, we're going to flip it, right? Very gently. Flip it. And now we can start preparing our bolts. So you're gonna need an 11 mil, a 13 mil, and a 6 millimeter Allen socket. So we're gonna take our 518, gonna put it on our threads, right? I rotate them as they go into the engine. Okay. Put 518 on all of our threads. Get them where they need to be. And then we have to do our torque sequence. So we'll show you that when we have all these in. All right, now that all of our bolts are 518'd, we are going to do our torque sequence. We're gonna show this on the screen after we briefly explain what I'm gonna do here. But you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, switch over to 13, 7, 8, then you're going to go to your Allens, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Alright, now you saw in the video, obviously I did not torque those down to any type of spec. Couldn't even hear the gun pop off to a torque. This is just to take the time out that it takes us to run down a bolt. So now you're going to take your torque wrench, you're going to set it to 17 foot-pounds because you're going to do your 11s first. So you're going to come back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, switching, also switching your torque to 30 now because you have your larger bolts. Okay, that was 6, 7, 8, right? Now you're at your Allen key, so you're gonna go back to 17. It's a pain in the ass, huh?
Yeah, 2 sockets and an Allen.
Okay, the last bolt was here. 9. Probably put an extension on this just because we're kind of losing the battle. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Alright, those are all torqued down. So now you're going to go back, you're going to do the exact same sequence to make sure all of your torque specs are still in line, and just to double check, and then after that, we'll flip it over and proceed to the next process. now that we have it flipped over, the first thing to do is to hold the rods so they don't bang against the case. Turn it over, make sure you're still buttery smooth. Because if you're not, then something's wrong. Okay, so now that's all set. We're gonna take, and this is what I was talking about earlier versus silicone, we're gonna take a rag and we're just gonna wipe our 518 out. Okay, so you're gonna do it inside your rotary surface. If you have to, you can use a little bit of our patented acetone, you know, because
secret sauce.
This channel would not be the channel it is if there wasn't for acetone. So, tiny bit of acetone. Make sure it's super clean. However, you want to make sure that you don't have a ton of acetone, so that where it's like so much that's dripping off your rag, because I'm sure it's not possible because of the tolerances, but I always worry about like the acetone wicking back in to my mating surface. So I make sure that my rag is like barely wet with acetone. Okay, so we're gonna go around and clean all of our 518 up where we don't want to see it, and then we will proceed to putting pistons on and showing you how to set the base gasket and all that good stuff. So now that we're at this step, it's time for pistons. If you use a good machine shop, which you should be using Andrew, you'll notice that he marks this cylinder's for use in cylinder, or this piston's for use in cylinder B. This one's for use in cylinder A, because he takes the time to measure everything. So look at your cylinders, find the A and B, and find the right spot for them. Now, I've already prepped these with the C-clip in on one side. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little bit of this tacky, ultra tacky assembly lube. Okay, put a little dot. Okay, rotate this. I'm gonna install it. And then I'm going to spin the bearing. I don't know what that blue piece is, but this guy get out of there. I'm going to spin it around, okay, making sure my lubricant is everywhere where it needs to be. I will take my wrist pin. I will install it into one side. I turn it so that it has a better way of going in, because sometimes they're a little bit difficult to get in. They shouldn't be, but they are. Okay. So, right, it's rotating. I throw my finger through this other side. Now, I'm already messing up right now, but you gotta make sure your arrow is pointing towards your exhaust, and your exhaust is this way, away from your rotary surface. So I'm throwing my finger through to line up, throw my wrist pin in. Then I'm gonna take my C-clip, and I'm going to make it so that my C-clip, where the relief is, you want it to be in the center, right? And I always have it facing up because the momentum of the engine, your compression stroke, it's said to sometimes if it's facing down, like the theory is that this can compress and get loose or whatever. So it's the way I was taught, it's the way I do it. So I have it in the center. It's in my top cutout groove. I'm gonna hold my thumb on the one side, put my screwdriver on the other side, hold it with my index finger, walk it in, right? Well, that one shot out, but walk it in. Okay, and then sometimes if your ring is not in the center though, like it's not right now, it will give you problems. So, have it in the center, screwdriver, using your index finger or thumb, pop it in. Okay, now you'll get to this stage to where you use your thumb to push the side in as you're using your screwdriver, and you're not like prying super hard on this, because if you bend this, then it's going to lose tension on it. So now you'll just kind of walk the rest of it in using your finger, okay, like that. Now that it's all the way in, you're going to rotate the piston so you can see all sides of it to make sure it's in that groove. And now that it is, you're good, and you can move on to the next one and install it the exact same way. Alright, so I have my bearing in, my lubricant's on it. I have rotated it so that it's equally dispersed. I put my wrist pin in, and as I'm pushing my wrist pin in, I am spinning either clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever way you feel comfortable, to make sure it goes in smoothly. I'll back it out, throw a finger through this side, push in my wrist pin, making sure that that arrow, once again, is towards the exhaust and away from the rotary surface. I will take my C-clip. I will make sure that this half is sitting in the chamfer, right? I'm going to keep pressure on this side with my thumb. With my screwdriver, I'm going to pry in this side, okay? When you get to a point that's sticking out like this, you're gonna go to the front of it, push it in, make sure you hear the clip, click into place. You're gonna rotate it, check that your C-clip is in the chamfer all the way around and is not edging anywhere. If you have to, push around your screwdriver, push around your wrist pin, make sure it's not coming out. Do that on both sides because you just installed that one on the bench and now your eye is at a different level. So we're checking all of them and they are perfectly in. Before we install our base gasket, we're gonna put our rings on. Platinum WSM rings come in two different kinds. So one is completely flat, right? No grooves, nothing. One has a dish on the top of it, right? This is dish. Flat side, dish side. Okay, we're gonna install the completely flat ring first on the bottom. You'll find these little dowels in the piston, okay? That's where you're gonna line up your ring to go in. You're gonna walk your ring very gently. Do not pry on the rings, do not bend the rings, anything to get them on, right? So now we're in our dowel. Now we're gonna take our top ring with the dish side up, flat side down. So flat side down, dish side up, walk it around, and we're set. We already did that on this one, so now we are good to install our base gasket and put our cylinders on. Now that our pistons are on and we're ready to install our base gasket, I always put a very, very, very thin amount of 518 on both the engine case side and the cylinder side. This just ensures that I don't have any gasket push and that everything is 100% sealed tight. A lot of people, some people, I guess I shouldn't say a lot, but some people will kind of frown upon this. I've always done this. It's worked out for all of our engines that we've built out of here. And it's just insurance that we won't have any type of gasket push or failure because I have seen it in the past. So again, super, super thin. It's barely even there. Both sides, then we'll install the base gasket and we'll mount our cylinders. All right, now we're putting our base gasket on. I have already calculated for squish, and the way to calculate for squish is that you have to put this together dry, take a squish measurement, then measure all your base gaskets that your kit comes with, and calculate the squish out that you want. We're not going to get into heavy details like that. If you're putting together this engine for a wreck rider, the medium base gasket should be perfectly fine for you. So we have the base gasket down, we have our cylinders prepped, ready to go. We are looking to see which one is our A and our B. Here's our A piston, here's our B piston. So this is a B, okay? So I'm going to compress the rings. I'm gonna line up my dowels. As I'm compressing the rings, making sure that they're center with the dowels, okay? And then we'll take up the cylinder. Exhaust at this point is facing away from you because your RV is facing you. I'm gonna put, right, tops on. Now we'll just kind of compress the bottom one. Walk it down and very carefully walk it down to where you're lining up and you're not disturbing the base gasket because this is somewhat of a tight fit. Okay, there's one. I kind of rotate it to make sure we're in. Then I'll push down on this piston, get my A up, which is now my PTO. Make sure, again, you double check that you're A and A, B to B if your poor guy did that, which if you're using Andrew, he will. Compress my rings, exhaust is facing away. Make sure that your cylinder is straight, otherwise if it's cocked it will not be a drop down. Okay, very gently, make sure everything's in, lining up. I wiggle it around to make sure it's good. And now we're going to find our exhaust. We're going to bolt our exhaust up so that our cylinders are aligned, and then we're going to be able to torque down our cylinders. Okay, so I don't have the exhaust here. I left it at the powder coat shop, but to finish this dang thing for you guys, I'm going to continue showing you the operation of putting it together. You should be putting your exhaust on it right now to make sure that your cylinders are aligned. I'm not overly concerned about it, so whatever. But I'm going to snug up these bolts, right? Okay. Okay, now those are snug. We're going to take our torque wrench and we are going to set it to 17 foot-pounds, which it's already set to. And we're going to torque these down to 17 foot-pounds. We're going to go in a crisscross pattern to equally distribute the clamp down on this. Okay. Again, these are 17 foot-pounds. We'll put it in the description somewhere in this video on the screen right now, but Okay, now that one's done. Front cylinder, crisscross, same thing. And then like before on the bottom end, go back and double check it that it is at 17. Okay. Okay, now these are all at 17 and our cylinders are torqued down. We can move on, which is going to be installing our head. So we'll pull out the O-rings and then we'll come back to installing the head. For the cylinders, you have two different types of O-rings. You have the large square O-rings and you have the round O-rings. Square O-rings are for the outside. You're just going to walk these around, push them in as you go. If you have to, take some, because you'll have extra material here, so just kind of disperse that extra stuff around. Okay, there's one, and then the small one is for your actual cylinders. So those are where your O-rings are supposed to set. We will do the other side now, and then we'll show you the two O-rings that go in on the head. All right, so I did apply a little bit of 518 to the top of these O-rings just because I like to make sure it's 100% sealed off, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. So then you have two different types of O-rings. You have this large O-ring for the water seal, and you have small rings that go on top of the domes. So you put the two on the domes, and then you walk this around, install this one. If you bought a Vertex kit, one is black, one is red, and I'm taking it that the red one goes on the top. So use your red one for the top because it's far smaller. Okay, so there's that. Should look like that. Now you can go ahead and put your cover on. Obviously pay attention to how the cover is. Okay, all of your you're assuring that all four of your O-rings are on top of your head. You're gonna set your head on, and then you have 12 bolts. These get no type of 518 or anything on them. You put all these in, snug them down, and then these will get torqued to 17 foot-pounds as well. So now that all of your bolts are in, you're going to snug them all down. This does have a sequence once again, so with the gun I'm just going to get them to my mating surface. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now all those are down. You're going to go back, do the same exact sequence, and you're torquing to 17 foot-pounds. Alright, so now that we have everything assembled on the top side, we're going to go ahead and install our front side, which is our mag. So we're going to grab our mag cover. We're going to put a little bit of 518 on here just to help us hold the gasket in place. Again, super thin amount. Okay, we're going to install our gasket, paying attention to how everything lines up, like that. Then we're going to take, I order new hardware for all the engines I put together when it's the small hardware like this. So I have brand new 304 stainless screws with, let's see, I think this is a 5 mil. Okay, so I got my 5 mil, and we're just gonna snug these up. And then this next torque spec I believe is Newton meters, so we'll have to figure that one out. But we install it, right? The 518 helped hold your gasket in place instead of messing around with it. And then I'm gonna bolt it together like I would tire on a car. So I'm gonna do my star pattern, and then I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna torque everything to spec. Our next step, now that our cover is on and these are torqued to 9 Newton meters, we are going to install our mag itself, or our stator, sorry. Okay, so the stator is adjustable for timing. So what you're gonna do is you're going to find your old marks where your washers were, and you're gonna line them up to get back the timing you had. You may have to change this down the road because you do have a new crank and everything else, so it may be a tiny bit different, but need a starting point. Okay, so we're using these type of screws. This is a 4mm Allen screw, and it has a decently thick washer on the bottom, and it has a lock washer on the top. So again, you're lining up your old timing marks, making sure that you're not pinching these wires. Okay, and then this, I believe, gets torqued to Newton meters as well. We'll post it on the screen, but we're just making it snug for right now, and then we'll go back and torque it. So after this is installed, we will move on to installing our flywheel key, and then also show you how to put these wires back in if you took them apart. Now we're going to reinstall these stator wires into our actual electrical connector. Okay, so this wire gets tucked in there. This foam comes back and gets installed to keep the wire out of the way. Okay, so now in the video, if you watched our last one when we uninstalled it, we had said that there was a certain way that these wires came out, and we'll show you how to put them back in. So we viewed our video to see how we pull the wires out. Okay, so we're gonna put the casing back on it, put our nut back in it. Actually, that is not what we need to do. You're forgetting the most important part, which is what keeps the water out.
Oh, the gasket.
Yeah, so you're gonna pop these through.
Oh yeah, little rubber guy.
Mm-hmm.
Nice save, nice save.
Indeed. Would have been like a do-over again.
We don't do overs, dude. We just do it live.
This whole video's been a do-over.
Yes, that's how you pull them through.
Obviously don't apply pressure to that because you'll mess them up, but okay, so now we can put our casing on. Okay, there's that. And then for our actual install of it, you're looking at the top side, right? This bevel. It's gonna go white on the, or I'm sorry, white, Jesus Christ, colorblind. You're gonna go straight yellow on the top. Okay, it's gonna pop back into place. You're going to go yellow black on the bottom. Then it's going to go black on the bottom and black red on the top. Okay, so you got your pin, top side here, yellow, underneath that, yellow black, top side, which would be on your right side, is black red, and below that is straight black. So now that that's all in, you're going to take this piece, you're going to drop it in the center. You might have to use a screwdriver for this because it's kind of hard to get in. Okay, you're going to drop it in the center, push it in, and everything's secured back into place.
Oh, I'm just getting close up to that. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So now that's all ready to install once we bolt it all up, like so. Okay, so now that you have your stator on and your wires are all ran, the last thing you have to do before you put the flywheel on is to put your wire guard or your wire retainer back on. So these are two 8mm screws. These are just tight. There's not really a torque spec. Do not over tighten them. They will strip out incredibly easy. And then you're screwed. Okay, so there's one. There's the other one. Okay, just snug. Snug. Alright, now that that is in, we will proceed to putting on our flywheel. Alright, so now that all of our wiring is done, we're going to rotate the engine over until our flywheel relief or flywheel key relief is exposed. We are going to put a little bit of 5/18 inside that relief. Okay, we're going to take our flywheel key, set it into place, making sure it's flat. We can wipe that residue, but we're also going to put a little bit of 5/18 around the snout of this, which helps with the initial shock of starting it, puts less wear on the key. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to pop our flywheel on, which we have cleaned up to the best of our ability. Okay, it's gonna take, the magnet's gonna take it in on you, so just rotate it until the key drops into place. Right, now you can spin it over, make sure everything is working as it's supposed to. You're gonna put a little bit of 5/18 on these threads. You're gonna put your locking nut on, and then you're going to put this bad dog on, and this torque spec is 107 foot-pounds. So what you're gonna have to do is first you're gonna have to find the socket, which I think it's that big one we got out that we set the sealant down with.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
Okay. There's our socket. You're going to go to the closest cylinder to where you're about to apply pressure. You're gonna rotate your piston all the way down. You're going to shove a rag inside of it so you have some type of a stop. Okay. You're going to rotate it till it locks on the rag. You're going to get out your torque wrench, set it to 107.
Have fun.
And rip a dip. Okay, there it is. Hear it? Oh yeah. Okay, so that step is complete. Completely done. Now you can take your flywheel, rotate it the opposite way, and pull your rag out of it. Okay, so now that that's all done, we can wipe away our residual 5/18 and move on to installing the cover. Woohoo! Okay, for our cover, if you're using a Vertex kit, now you're using the black O-ring that we originally tried to fit on the head and was far too large, and now you see why. So walk it around, get all the slack out of it where it needs to go. We're making sure that foam's in there. That little indent is from your cover, right? You're gonna put your cover on. I have new 10 mil hardware. I'm gonna put all my new hardware in, kind of crisscross it, and then tighten it down so that I don't have to hold this thing, but I have to find my 10 mil first, which Nick just gave to me, but I have no idea where it is. Okay. So we're tightening this down into place. Okay, now that that's in place, you're gonna take your bracket that's holding your wire for your stator on. Make sure that you install that. And then you can proceed to installing the rest of them all the way around it. There is 10 screws total. Like I said earlier, on the small hardware, I ordered new hardware. So I will put a link in the description to new hardware that I get right off Amazon. It's super nice 304 stainless hardware, and I have had zero problems with any of it. It's just easier than wasting all your time wire wheeling all these things, and it's nice to have new stuff. So we're going to go on a cross pattern. Okay. Okay. All right, the next step is we're going to time our RV. So you're going to rotate the engine. I have this gauge on here. You can also use a screwdriver. Actually, let's just show you with a screwdriver so that nobody's gonna freaking order this just for one engine. All right, so put your screwdriver down, right? And you're watching your screwdriver to get to the highest point, right? So right now I can already tell you I'm on my rotation down. I know it's gonna keep going. So now we have, there's our highest point, right? And this is your mag cylinder. You're going to take your degree wheel and you're going to put 360 on the bottom edge, okay? And you're looking for 147. So here's 140, 145, 6, 7. So right there. And what you can do is you can just use a permanent marker. This camera's in my damn way, but it's fine. 145, 67, so we're right here. Right? About right there. Now we're going to take our degree wheel, which is our rotary wheel, wherever it ran off to. Okay. Got that? 147?
Cool. Yeah, nice and close.
Perfect. Minty.
Right.
Okay. Now we're going to take our degree wheel off. We're going to put our rotary wheel on and our 147, right? So you can watch where your teeth go. So where you're rotating it this way, that's locked in too far. So now what you would do is you're going to flip it over, and now your 147 is where it needs to be. But to double check that before you call it good, you should put your degree wheel back on it, find your 147, which is directly on the head, but then make sure that you didn't turn the engine at all, which you shouldn't have. So put your screwdriver back on top, make sure you're at your highest point, recheck it. But this is very critical that this timing is perfect. So we're at 147. We can proceed to the next step, which would be to get our RV cover, right? Comes in two pieces on these ones. We're gonna get our RV O-ring.
Oh, that one actually fits.
Yeah. Well, now that you said it doesn't.
Just jinxed it.
Okay. Come on, Miller.
You need a second hand.
Okay. There's your RV O-ring. Stretch out if you have to a little bit. Okay.
Have a friend over.
You're gonna line this bad dog up, and you're going to reinstall your 13 mil bolts, and then we will move on to putting the rest of the front together, and we will call it done.
Done. So.
Okay, now that our RV cover is on, we need to put on the front half of this cover. This is going to have this ovary looking O-ring.
Yeah, it looks like an owl.
Ovaries.
Ovaries. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, you're going there. Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna lock everything into place. You gotta work on this gasket, or this O-ring, because this thing kind of sucks. Because of the corners.
Here, I'll help.
Thanks, dude.
That's why you always need an extra set of hands when you're in the garage, man.
Yeah, so I guess if you're DIYing, call your buddy. Alright, so now that that bad dog's on, we're going to put this on. Now you'll notice that I am not putting my oil pump and my gear back on. If you're going to do your oil pump, putting it back on, you need to put your oil pump on, put your gear on, so that this gear meets that gear, so it actually pumps oil and doesn't just sit there and do nothing. This is a oil, we're going to block this oil off because this is going in a sports spec race boat, so we're not installing that. So if it's your time to put that on, you need to put this on, this assembly on, and then you have your gear that sits in here that goes on. Maybe refer to the disassembly video if you're doing that. So now that we have that on, we're going to take our final Allen bolts, and I just make these tight. I think the spec's probably close to the 9 Newton meters again. Okay, you'll probably most likely need, we got a mess of tools over here, bro.
Yeah, they're over there to your left.
Yeah, we'll probably need, I don't know what we'll need. Okay. Okay, so tighten these. Okay, that's all done. We'll show you just how to put the PTO on very quickly. I'm not going to put this all the way on because I'm waiting on the HX one to be powder coated. I only have a normal one right now, but you would put a little bit of 518 on the threads, screw this bad dog on, right? Okay, and then you would use your impeller tool. Okay, pop your impeller tool in. And then the foot-pounds for the PTO are 81 foot-pounds. So you're gonna torque this down to 81 foot-pounds, and then your engine is 100% complete. Like I said, I'm not putting this one on only because the HX takes an entirely different one than this. Dunzo. Now, the next step you should be doing is you should be rotating this thing around, and you should be blocking off your oil ports. Now, we're not going to do this right now just because I like to let my gasket sealer sit for 24 hours, but you should be blocking off your RV, right? And then you're going to pump this with like 7 to 10 foot-pounds of, or I'm sorry, PSI of air. And this needs to sit, to pass the test, it needs to sit for like 30 minutes, I think, per the book. I let it sit for hours and make sure that doesn't drop. So definitely pressure test it before you go, any further. And actually, the pressure test probably would have been better off if you're using a used crank and you're not buying all new stuff. I would highly recommend pressure testing this thing before you put this top end on, because if you get to this stage and it fails the pressure test, you have to blow the entire thing back apart. So probably should have made that note after we got the bottom end together to pressure test it, but we're confident in this because we have a new crankshaft and we did all the right procedures, and we were basically starting with a fresh case and everything else from our bead blasting and powder coating. So I'm not concerned about it. But like I said, if you're using a used crank, definitely pressure test it before you get to this stage. Pressure test it when you have your bottom end together. Definitely let the RTV, or not RTV, but the 518 set for like 4 hours before you pressure test it. You probably don't have to, but just for safe measure, I would.
Anything else?
No.
We're done?
Yeah, finally. Alright, so that's how you reassemble your 717 after you blew it apart months ago from one of our videos. No, that's how you assemble your 717. We really hope that this video helped you out. We try to be as detailed as possible, but not be like super institutionalized to where it's like a boring step-by-step. If you have any questions, as always, post them in the comments below. Hopefully all the torque specs and everything helped you throughout the video, but if you missed some of them, we did post a link underneath that shows you the Seadoo source page that we talked about earlier, where you can pull it up and print it out so you can put it on your bench like we do. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next one.